right in the topic. We are saying finding clarity in chaos. And then we are also saying the ever-changing new normal. So how can a normal become a normal while it is ever-changing? But that's the reality of these days. So these are the current times through which we are living. So on that topic, which fits so very well with the overall theme of seismic shift in human resources for powering growth text. So how do we connect all these dots to our workforce, to our workplace and work pace? Because ultimately the work pace will become the differentiator for our respective businesses in this world. So it is a great panel, which is we are having on this session. You would have seen their bios, which are also available on the chat box for a refresh, but I will very quickly mention them. We have Shalu Manan, Vice President HR Transformation for Genpact. She brings some very special insights, specifically for the professionals who are part of shared services as an industry and always engaged in these transformation initiatives for their functions and across the functions. Sanjay Virmani, Chief HR Management, Tata Steel. Sanjay, with his very long experience in end-to-end all the aspects of human resources management, including direct exposure on shared services setup and other transformation initiatives. We will be much benefited from his insights. Konika Chadha, she is the regional market leader and head of professional search India for Korn Ferry. And she brings in not only the perspectives of her organization, but because of the very nature of the business that Korn Ferry is engaged in, she has a plethora of experiences of the leadership interactions across the industry. And we will be much looking forward to hearing from Konika, both from her own perspective and also the nuggets that she can share from other leadership interactions that she has been having on a day-to-day basis. And Pooja Malik, she is the group head HR for DMI Finance, a very interesting business that DMI has got. They are an NBFC as well as a very strong player in the housing finance. So how the entire elements of this chaotic world relating specifically to our workforce, how they are impacting businesses like both from the front end as well as from the so-called back-end perspective. Pooja will be specifically impactful when we share her experience. So, pardon for my bad throat. So, ladies and gentlemen, first of all, I must compliment my colleagues on the Shared Services Forum for actually picking up or crafting such an interesting panel discussion topic. Although a lot has been said and heard in various contexts in whatever is we are witnessing currently, but to bring it forth into the real world and what it means for our professional practitioner colleagues in their day-to-day lives, as well as for the leaders to evolve and respond to the changing needs from them, specifically when we consider that every single people leader is actually an extended form of human resource leadership also. So they not only are functional leaders, but they are also a very important element of taking all our HR practices and policies and cultural aspects of an organization to the front end levels as well. So I would just make a couple of remarks from my own side to set the context, and then I would go around the panel to hear their overall views first, and then we will get into an interactive mode with them. So if I were to step back and look at it, the whole thing, we were already have been in an era of very fast change, where the speed has been accelerating with every passing day. We had heard this term VUCA a few years ago, but that pales in comparison of what we have actually been confronted with. Technology as a major disruptor has been only adding to all these, both chaos as well as sweet rewards in terms of the customer and people experiences added by good use of technology. What has also been happening is that we all know that robots are replacing humans in many, many jobs. So much so that at times we have been finding it appropriate to start humanizing those very robots. And it has not been uncommon to see that the robots have been named, they have been given a tag, sometimes even a gender tag, depending on the nature of the task that they are supposed to be doing and things like that. So what has been, some of the consequences were foreseen, some of them we have only started experiencing as the times have gone by, including at times there have been murmurs of erosion of corporate ethics, values, because you can't specifically teach them to a co-worker who is not a human being but a bot. Even the leadership challenges have been of a different type. The leaders which have to be could have been role models for human beings, now they have to also factor in how they will be leading a diverse workforce, which is made up of both humans as well as machines. Are they supposed to become movie stars now? Are they supposed to become super robots? As I recall one cartoon going viral only in last few days about one robot walking into an interview room just to be surprised with that much larger robot sitting on the other side of the table. Okay, so with that kind of thing, I mean, there may be some exaggeration, but in many industries, the ratio of machine workers, the bots, the robots is increasing and going into many significantly higher percentages. And so this is one kind of hybrid situation that we are seeing in the workplaces. And we can call it as we are vertically hybrid. But even more impactful dimension of this whole situation is that we are seeing is the horizontally hybrid workspace. And what I mean by that is this entire remote working, which has eroded all the boundaries between a workplace and where it has to be. So we all know about that, and there have been, like we were hearing yesterday also, there have been a complete pendulum shift in some situations. Some people who had predicted that the days of brick and mortar office are over, many of them are now requesting their workforce to be back because there were challenges in 100% virtual, and there are obviously not possible to remain 100% on site. So with this kind of evolving situation, and added to that is that how it is impacting the HR leaders' lives, the great attrition we are all been hearing about, and some of the challenges that these flexibilities are bringing to the forefront. I thought it will be appropriate for us, the entire audience, to get benefit from individual experiences, as well as success stories, as well as some learnings that our panelists may have had in their own individual situation. So I would go around the table and starting with in no particular order, Konika, can you please share from your side?
Thank you so much. First of all, it's lovely to be part of this session. And obviously, I think the topic that we are discussing will be probably very thought-provoking and interesting for all of us to learn as well. And like you rightly said, Anand, I think while I have my own experiences as Conferry as an organization, we also fortunately have a view on what was really happening across different sectors in terms of how organizations have really and different sectors have actually responded in very different ways. In some places, they've been fast because they had the wherewithal. There were people working from home. They were already at a stage where automation was happening. So for them to implement and scale up was probably a little less easy, less difficult than the rest of them. Whereas there were certain other kind of sectors where probably they had never thought that, they will have to digitize or go online or work offline within a matter of 24 to 48 hours, getting laptops and machines in. To your point, sometimes I think we kind of generally talk to ourselves that we spend more time with our laptop than we spend with anybody else. So our best co-worker today is our laptop and the Zoom meetings that we attend. So there's digital fatigue by the end of the day because you're having so much of screen time. Now, what this has actually done is, and what perspective I would like to highlight, and we've been doing a lot of research and brainstorming in terms of looking at the information which is getting collected today, where organizations and leaders, I would call out from both perspectives. Organizations are going through a major power shift. It is a question about we and not me anymore. They have to think about inclusivity. They have to think about organizations which are future ready. From an HR perspective, it has to be far more human because of the increased technological and digital touch that is actually happening in everybody's life today. Which means that they will have to be very innovative in terms of workplace practices, listening to employees. And let me tell you, it has only put more pressure on the HR community because today employee engagement is also personalized. It is no longer about let's keep a huddle, let's walk on the floor and let's, meet up together. It's become very personalized because today employee lives are no longer or their workplace is no longer limited to the scope of the job description which was given to them. Actually, the whole family is the workplace now. Yeah, so that's a huge shift which we are seeing and everybody is grappling with. We are talking about sustainability. We are talking about being very inclusive in a digital environment today. Being able to have, I think we are talking about digital ethics, how the code of conduct should be on a digital workplace. Those policies are also kind of undergoing a lot of change in that respect. And what this has really done is there's a very huge shift and a huge amount of accountability that leaders and organizations have today. And for leaders, there's something that, we published very surprisingly, I will share, and, it's a publicly available report. Conferry had done a study to really understand how many leaders are actually prepared to undergo this change and manage organizations. Can anybody guess what that number would be? It was only 17% of the current leadership team. Why? Because today leaders are not just managing change, they are also running a very different organization. As a result, the skill sets that the leaders require today are also very, very different. They have to be more empathetic. They have to be, I would say communicate a lot. The communication strategy has changed completely. There is no such thing as over communication anymore. What is going on, employees really need to know what it is, because to your point, Anand, which you mentioned, there is also a lot of uncertainty and anxiety about employees. Which process is going to get automated? Is my job there or not? Which means from an organization perspective, they have to invest heavily on reskilling, and employees also have that responsibility today to upskill and reskill themselves, with this entire change and the power shift that is happening in a very hybrid and a digitized mode that we are at. So I think I'll take a pause here and pass it back to you.
Thank you so much, Kanika. Indeed, you brought in all these expected perspectives, both as a Korn Ferry leader as well as a leader who is so well connected to other peers in the space. So that has been absolutely useful. May I now turn to Pooja, please? How have you been experiencing and responding to all these aspects of parity between bot workers and human workers, as well as adopting this hybrid model on the geographical aspect of it, and anything else that you want to add?
Thank you, Anand. Thanks for inviting me to speak. I'll just take a step back and, like how it started. And like many organizations, many leadership teams, we didn't expect what was coming our way. We thought it was like a temporary thing. And we were like, we were just kind of saying, okay, let's be prepared for like a month, 3 weeks, whatever. We, being a very employee friendly organization, we said, okay, before the lockdown happened, we said work from home. And that was part of the, like you shared, we have two big spaces. One is the NBFC, which is broadly a fintech. And one is, like large part of the NBFC is a fintech, and other is the housing finance, which works out of branches. So it was easier to, manage the NBFC because everybody is, has laptops, they could work from home and everything, but and the HFC was impacted because, we had to close down branches, and like many other industries, business was impacted. So I think immediately there were 3-4 things that we had to kind of, from HR point of view, we had to cover, which was, suddenly we were not HR, just like, in a silo. We had to partner with business in resolving business problems, because it was just not HR suddenly. We, like more than ever, obviously, we in today's world, HR is a business partner, and it's no longer like a support service. But more than anything else, we had to understand what does the business want and how do we continue the business. So a lot of owners came on us. We had to kind of, ability in responding, whether it was HR or the leadership, was extremely important. We had to just, quickly unlearn or learn or think out of box, like how to manage, because it's a competitive market. And if we are going to go into a lockdown, how do we continue business? And so that was another challenge that came, and we had to respond immediately. Like I said, HR played a big role in bridging the initial gap. So we started gradually with just looking at automation, which was very easy, which was already there on the NBFC side. But on the HFC side, we quickly had to get, direct all our tech platform into addressing and making it like more of a digital platform, at least most part of the processes. This was initially from the back end. Now at the front end, we had to, partner with the leadership in communication. That was like even, Kanika said, that has changed, that has to change. A lot of communication from leadership in, addressing their security, that we had to address people that nobody's losing their jobs. We've got finances for future, just relax. There were a lot of challenges people had initially, sitting at home, because, there's varied workforce. There are youngsters, there are techies who live in a 1-room apartment, to families who live in 2-room apartment with kids having school, everything. So gradually we had to kind of, address that, accept as leadership, as management, that suddenly it was no longer about work-life balance. We had to accept that it is going to be work-life integration. We have to accept that it's okay to, maybe share a laptop, share your office space. If as co-parent, I mean parents who are, suddenly there was a divide between like many women in the typical domestic role versus men in a typical professional role. Suddenly those things swap. And I had women saying that, we need to get back to work because they could handle it. I had men saying that, we need to get back to work. We can't handle it. So, but we had to kind of, push back. So I'm just sharing the mundane challenges that came our way, and we had to kind of, push back and be very tolerant in as leadership. While we did not at all compromise on the business part of it, we also HR had to kind of partner with managers in making sure that while we are flexible, while I said that we propagated work-life integration when people can work, but we had to very quickly devise objective short-term matrix to measure what the output. Because if people are going to be working from home, it's not about when you are working, it is about the output. So some of these things came as like big challenge, and like over the months we've kind of adopted those. And like I said that like the chatbots, we didn't have like a chatbot at the beginning. We had like a typical call center, but in the initial months we quickly invested. We understood that forward thinking, that this is here to stay. This chaos is here to stay, and we have to kind of be one step ahead, otherwise we're going to be losing it. So that's where we had to keep thinking and be ahead and be collaborative. We had a lot of interaction with people. I mean, my team, myself, we are a very fast growing organization. We like a giant baby, not baby startup, but like a giant startup. It's very fast growing. We hired almost 150 175 people in these last 18 months. Now, how do you get these people integrated into an organization? Like, many of you shared that warm human touch. There's no longer huddles. There's no longer like, water cooler talks. There's no longer a cafeteria. How do you get people together? People who were existing in the organization, it was easier to engage. But how about newcomers? So HR had to invest a lot of time in making sure that things were, their induction, their orientation, their structured, more than ever, their structured interaction with people. I had to speak to, like, I started speaking to every new person who came in, which meant a lot of Zoom meetings. It was mind-boggling when the Zoom meetings start and when by the time you close. But these are the challenges that like we faced, and we are still facing. Now we are much better organized, and we are into a hybrid mode. Like I said, that we have been forced to accept that it's okay. You don't need to be into a brick and mortar office, but yes, you also need to be there, because you cannot replace face-to-face interaction for the lack of creativity, for the lack of ideating, brainstorming, and engagement as an organization. So that's where we are at this point of time.
Thank you so much. May I now request Sanjay to share his perspective on how a mature, large industrial organization like Tata Steel responded and are responding to this.
Yeah, thank you. Am I audible?
Yes.
Okay. So having spent over 3 decades in Tata Steel, it's actually, I'm born and brought up in Tata Steel, I would say, because this is my second generation I'm working in Tata Steel. There are 4 generations who work in Tata Steel, right? And all of us are aware of that. And I'm quite fascinated by the taglines which Tata Steel has. The earlier tagline was values are stronger than steel. Now we also make tomorrow. Now these are the taglines where the entire flow happens in the entire organization, right? And last 2 years has been challenging for all of us. Each one of us have had their own stories, and each one of us would have faced these challenges, in our own way. And for Tata Steel, having our manufacturing units across locations, across geographies, was a huge task, because as you are aware that we represent 80% of our workforce is a blue-collar workforce working in most of the manufacturing units. And in being an integrated steel plant, we have our own mining area, we have our corporate functions, we have doctors, we have pilots on rolls. So each function, we have our hospitals running in Jamshedpur and other locations. So each category of people had their own challenges to deal with, right? And being a diversified workforce, we have a sizable number of PWDs, we have LGBTs, we have women employees, we have contract employees, we have vendors, we have stakeholders. So each of these stakeholders, different segments of the workforce had to be catered to. So the primary objective of this entire interventions which have happened, unfolded in the last 2 years, has been primarily on health and safety of our workforce, right? And as Tata's value system promote that people care comes first before anything else. So health and safety was the foremost, important intervention. A lot of intervention which happened for frontline employees as well as employees who were there in the manufacturing units across locations. We came up with very innovative security schemes. Example I'd like to share is a scheme which we extended to frontline employees to give them this confidence and comfort when they were grappling with the situation last 2 years. And also to people who died because of COVID, was extending a social security scheme where the nominee, not the spouse, not necessarily the spouse, the nominee would continue to get the last pension of the deceased employee till the notional age of 60 years. Supposing if for the next 40 years,
Sanjay, your voice is coming well. Would you may be having some network related issues?
Yeah, am I audible now?
Yes.
Okay.
If it happens again, you may try to switch off the video first for that moment.
Okay, I'll for a. Is it better now?
Hopefully.
Is it better?
Yes, now better.
Okay. Next most important intervention which HR was doing, and along with the team, the business continuity plan, ensuring that since iron and steel come under the services, we had to run essential services, the critical plants, and the business continuity plan was exhaustively prepared along with the business needs of all the units across India operations, and that all critical manpower available, extending to officials of reducing 12 hours. All these things supported by accelerated digital
Sanjay, your challenges with the network continues. I think your challenges with the network continue. I'll come back to you in a moment.
Okay, sir. Sure.
Okay, I'll come back to you in a moment, and you may like to just review your network in the meantime. Let me move to Shalu now. With Genpact being on the forefront of servicing multiple clients of various time zones, various processes, some of them being very enterprise critical. You can't have any gaps, any downtime, anywhere, and how have you responded, or your workforce has responded to that? And particularly in the context of wherever there are bots deployed or other such disruptive interventions that you have faced.
Thanks, Anand. Can you all hear me? I have a network issue as well. So if I have a problem,
right now it is treating you well. Right now it is treating you very well.
Okay, it's treating me well. Thank you, Anand. Okay, so, Konika and Pooja and till we could hear Sanjay, everybody's spoken about the impact of pandemic and how it's changing us, and what's becoming the core of our day-to-day operations. I think many of us didn't imagine 3-4 years back. In fact, even 2 years back, in January 2020, nobody would have predicted what we all have gone through collectively in the last 20 months. And it's fascinating how some of the best organizations have struggled.
Oh,
and
I think I spoke out of time.
Organizations, right? Did I lose you all?
Yeah, I think Anand spoke too soon.
Yeah, that's what I was saying. Anyway.
Can you hear me? Let me stop my video first. Can you hear me now? Okay, let me try with video off and let's see where it reaches. I don't know where I lost you, but let me try and pick up. Can you all still hear me, or have I lost you again?
Yeah, we can hear you, Shalu.
We can hear you very well now.
Okay, fine. So I think I'll crunch my talking to lesser time so that you get the gist of what I'm trying to say. Long story short, I think my co-panelists have done a brilliant job in setting the context of how organizations are shifting gears and dealing with what's there. My organization works in a lot of essential services space because we support companies which are essential to many global locations in this world. And one of our biggest challenge was how do we continue to focus on our people and our customers' people. And when I say our customers' people is end users who are utilizing the essential services given by our clients. And the good news is this, that our organization has always been tech heavy. We've always believed in the concept of flexibility. It's inherent into our DNA that it doesn't matter where you work from, which hours you work from, as long as work gets done, we are very appreciative. And I think some of those ethos of how we work and the flexibility as leadership, as well as the core HR functions belief in how we get the best out of our people has been at the center of how we dealt with this change. Three key things, if I may, simplify at the same time summarize how we've looked at our workforce as well as work in the new dynamics. Is really investing in skill set. And I think Konika touched upon it pretty beautifully. Investment in skill set of how you deal with new tech, but also how you deal with yourself. We all have gone through ups and downs of wellness and mental agility, as well as ability to deal with so much change constantly with the onslaught of emotional turmoil, right? Many of us have been personally affected by it. Many have fallen ill, recovered thankfully. Many have gone through personal loss, even in personal lives as well as at work. And I think we all spend a substantial part of our life at work, and losing colleagues has not been easy. So dealing with this grief while focusing on how do you keep the business running has been a new learning. And individually for myself, as well as collectively as leaders who have to inspire people go on, how do we show that flexibility to deal with it has been
Shalu, we lost you. I don't know if it's me or everybody.
one is
Yeah, I think you're breaking up in between. Yeah.
Indeed, there was a little bit of silence again.
or can you all not hear me still?
Mm.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can.
No?
We can hear you. Yeah.
Okay, so the first thing is, of course, the skill set. How do you invest in skill set and make sure your people are ready to deal with what's happening? The second is tool set. You have to overnight change the frameworks of how work gets done. And last is mindset. And I was really fascinated when we started this talk. Aika was talking, and she was talking about how do you consider your own self and how do you focus on your positivity to inspire what's happening around you. And I think the three together is all about saying you enable your workforce to be their best every day. But in that process, you give them the frameworks to do their job, but constantly encourage, show that empathy, connect, collaborate, and communicate. I think these three C's became front and center of how we could continue to not just survive. I think in many cases, I feel we have thrived through this period, both as an individual, as a company, but more so as a country. I think we figured out ways. And it's rightly said that survival no longer is about the fittest. It is about the one who will adapt the fastest. And there have been amazing stories. In fact, on the panel, when I was hearing Pooja talk about her organization journey, I think it was so amazing to hear how we have all figured out a way to adapt. And when I look at my personal role as an HR transformation lead, working very closely with HR shared services, I think shared services, which is considered or was considered at the back end of getting the transactional work done, I think at the core of it, a simple task like onboarding, when it became virtual overnight, this year alone, in India, we have onboarded close to 25,000 people. And it's crazy. Look at the volumes we deal on a daily basis. To do it with a tool that we launched, all built during the pandemic period last year. It got launched in January this year. We automated 80% of our onboarding process. And this was a huge support in making sure that we are able to bring some amazing pre-onboarding experiences to life for our new candidates, as well as give them a structured 90-day campaign, which was driven by a mobile-based app after they joined our company. And I think these are just little examples of how shared services reinvented itself using good technology, using targeted data-driven decision-making. So we did sentiment analysis to say, how will we make sure that our employees who are now onboarding in a virtual format share the pride we have, as a Gen factor. And I think these are little things, and we don't think too much about them, but they go a long distance in making sure people and technology together, when applied to achieve business objectives, always get results. So with that, over back to you. I'm sorry if anyone of you couldn't hear me, but I'll try again to switch on my video and see if I.
Yeah, no, wonderful. You could cover a lot of ground, and I'll come back to you about while you have covered very well about the hiring that you did, and how did you make the new Gen factor, the remote Gen factor who joined without the benefit of being physically connected with the rest of the organization. How do you manage to still engage them and create the the element of pride in them, which is so very important. So I would like to check if we have Sanjay still with us. No. Okay. So while Sanjay may want to come back and join us afresh, can I request the host to put up an audience poll, please? That's a live poll for the audience, and they may give some of their views on the topic that, or challenges related to the topic that we are discussing. And panelists, please remember that you can and you should also vote when the question comes up. So we're just waiting for the question to be flashed. Give me a 30 seconds. I think I see action happening at the host room. Here it is. Gone.
Technology for us.
Yeah, today we are getting some special.
I know. I think something's not okay. Maybe we should answer one statement Srinivas put in the Q&A.
Oh, sure. Well, that's a great idea.
Yeah, I was looking at the question, the second one where he said designing parity. Oh, the question is back. Let's get the question first answered.
So let me read it out for everyone. What is the one significant challenge in managing a dynamic workplace of the future? And you have to, well, there could be many answers, but what will be your single choice? So 10 more seconds. Okay. Can we have the results flashed, please? So almost 50% said, half the people say loss of interaction or bonding between employees is the single biggest challenge of this dichotomic workplace that we have been experiencing. Whereas a significant 20% say, and I would very much empathize with that statement also, sense of loss of control for the middle managers, for the people managers over productivity and quality. They sometimes feel how to really intervene on a real-time basis when the work is happening from remote. And often they find it challenging to deliver on the quality side of the aspect. So anyway, it has been great participation, audience. Thank you very much. We go back to the question which was being answered, and I think Pooja was taking a shot at it.
Wasn't Shalu was.
Oh, I'm so sorry. Shalu.
No worries.
Go ahead, please. So
I
you're
think
taking the first one.
Shalu's screen is probably frozen. It seems.
I can take a shot at it.
Yeah.
So I think the Srinivas just says that designing parity between bot workers and human workers, the sentence itself is depressing, a sign of the times. So yeah, it is a sign of the times, but I wouldn't say depressing. I personally like to get into action mode. You just have to deal with things and adapt. And so there's nothing depressing about it. I would just deal with it, and that's the way. Doesn't mean that you treat the bots as humans and the humans as bots. It's your reaction and the treatment that matters. So I don't think it's depressing.
I got dropped off at the absolute right time. Thank you, Pooja, for saying. I think we had telepathy. You said exactly what I wanted to say. I don't think it's depressing at all. And I'll tell you, I think there is a little bit of, and it could be just my personal experience and view. So forgive my view to be a little more divergent from a lot of people. I think we are a little bit overreacting to the presence of technology around us. Let's step back a little bit. Technology has been used, and bots have been used, by the way, in manufacturing, in dangerous workspaces for longest time. So why this overreaction when service industry is using bots to make better experiences come to life for us as human beings? I really think it is just multiplying our capacity to do more. And I really believe that if technology is used well, it complements human capacity and capability. So the first step, as Pooja was saying, is to not think about it as good or bad, positive or negative. It is what it is. It is making our lives better. And in all its form, every time industrial revolution has happened, there has been higher value adding jobs that have been added to the human race. Now, if that happens, that does not mean thousands of people become jobless and workless and have no life. No, it's just that the work evolves. And there are certain things that we no longer need to do because somebody can use an automated code to do this for you more efficiently. And you can use your capacity to think differently and brilliantly in something better. So I really request you to look at it as glass half full. And then probably solutions will come. I am absolutely not saying there are no problems. There are challenges like with anything else. All I'm requesting is don't make it about humans versus technology. It is not just that. Good and bad coexist in our world. So we have to figure out a way as leaders to solve and make the most of it.
Yeah, I think that is the crux
Really
of
good
the
challenge.
whole thing, that we are probably trying to figure out that is the word parity probably means that we have home bots, as often is also called, that we have humans and bots and working for the similar objectives. The question which often is raised is, how do you engage and motivate a workforce which is hybrid? Any takers to that question?
Actually, I think I'll just kind of add some inputs here, and
Sure.
to your point on giving motivation or adding motivation in this kind of a hybrid structure, and it is also somewhere linked with one question which I think Srinivas had asked earlier, which was upskilling and reskilling, and our organizations continually reviewing it. So Srinivas, absolutely that's happening. So if I have to just take example, as Korn Ferry, we are doing it for our own organization because, technology is getting involved over there. And the second part is on upskilling and reskilling. I think everything that we're talking about today and in the last two sessions, you will see today the competencies that are needed to perform today and even in the future, they will keep changing. And I think they keep evolving every 2 to 3 years. It is nothing to do with just the pandemic. It does. Now, but what is actually happening, to your point, Anand, it is going to be, today wellness, vitality of employees has taken a step ahead than of anything else that was there. People are talking about mental health awareness, etc., which is going to play. So when we are talking about keeping employees motivated, I think the first thing that we have to do is take a step back and actually do a rain check and let the employees feel they are connected, they are heard, and there are platforms available to them to be able to make their voice absolutely known in the organization today. So that's going to be very, very critical. And obviously, I think I touched upon it earlier as well. The experience is all about giving that personal and human touch in terms of what they need today, rather than just having huddles or talking about generic statements. Because, again, linking with the fact that today workplace is home and you're dealing with the family, you're dealing with family issues at the workplace now. That balancing act is something which is going to be very, very important today. Providing that ecosystem for them to be able to do what they're supposed to do. I think Pooja mentioned earlier in the conversation that, there are women who were wanting to come to work, and there was a role reversal in what the women were doing and what the men were doing at home. So, acceptance, tolerance, and being able to adapt and give them that sense of belonging and purpose to continue doing what they are doing in an organization is very important. So, it again goes back to bottom line, sense of purpose. Why am I here? What am I doing? And how am I going to do it? I think this is what HR will have to address today.
Very well put. And to that, I would add a supplementary from my side. This entire thing is demanding different type of leadership skills, competencies, and style, which is more relevant and effective. So how is the HR fraternity of today is adapting itself fast enough to be able to really help them acquire those or refine those or whatever?
I think
Shalu seems to be having some views here. Yes.
Yeah, I was just going to say this. This is also a topic of, I'm very passionate about. I really believe in that the HR teams have to step up and reimagine what we think is not just what our purpose and value to the organization is, but also what we bring to the table. And what we bring to the table is our mindset and skill set, right? Tool sets more often than not are determined by standards we all have to follow. Beyond a point, technology is also similar, right? The HR's management system won't change from company to company beyond a point. Somebody might buy an Oracle versus an SAP versus a Workday versus a smaller ERP, but we will all be bound by the frameworks and systems we all have to follow within the laws of the land. And I think the HR team's first expectation, and I've been saying this for some time also because I think with technology coming in, we can no longer say that we are at the mercy of what others tell us to do, or we will just make the people process run and it will just find its course and we will be hands off, right? And I feel it starts with we being a lot more human centric than just being the protagonist following the rules of being in HR or human resources as a function. And I think there is an aspect of, and I love about this, this whole problem solving, but in a human-centered design thinking manner. It's at the core of empathizing. And I love the definition of compassion. It is empathy plus action. And I always believe actions speak louder than words, which means HR now has a unique opportunity to not just set up processes and use technology to accelerate those processes, but force the pivot of experience and people first. And when that happens, we solve problems in a human centered way. We become the role model of being inclusive. We start building skills in us which are all about practicing courage and curiosity. And the second role, which has become very important for HR to play, is to be a coach. And I think people believe that HR teams are by default supposed to be coaching and supposed to know how to do it all. I think it's a under-honed skill, if I may put it that way. And if anything, I have seen good companies which have survived and are figuring out ways to revive faster than others are those where leaders as well as HR professionals are all stepping up and practicing, and HR leaders more often becoming a role model of being a coaching mindset at work to say, not everything is about knowing all answers, but a lot is about exploration. And exploration will not happen unless you practice curiosity, you practice courage. And courage is not absence of fear. Courage is about accepting the vulnerability that we are all feeling every day, the sense of lack of control and uncertainty, but still saying, I will move forward because I have people with me. And I think for HR fraternity, while we are evolving our processes and policies and connecting ourselves, and India is going through such massive policy changes as well. So we have to constantly study the market and say, okay, what's working? And the war of talent is only getting worse. So how do we make, people coming into our own companies faster and awesome experience? And we're competing with some of the toughest competition right now, right, for the same talent. So HR professionals have to invest in themselves, learn design thinking, understand the power of technology, use data to interpret what really matters to people for their advantage and reach, because you can't any longer walk in the bays and meet people, and then intentionally become the role model of a coaching mindset and ability to deal with ambiguity and support the leaders, and there are some amazing organizations that support that journey as well. So find good partners out there who can join you, coach your leaders, coach yourself to support the organization, serve your customers. So I think that's where I feel the HR teams have to be far more strategic and far more centered in the future that they will have to support the leaders to deal with.
I think Shasha, you put it up beautifully. If I may just add one more thing that I just think that, HR also needs to invest more than ever in understanding the need of the business. They have to be the conduit between business and the people.
Yep.
And, bring them together on the same page. Because not, as you said, like coaching will not happen in one day.
Correct.
The great managers will not happen in one day. So HR has to kind of really, really, truly more than ever partner in business solutions and understand that. So that's a big investment, I think.
Thanks, Pooja. You actually sparked one more thought. Thank you for adding that. HR is also the truth keeper of patience. Change will not happen overnight, but it has to happen if we all have to survive this wave, right? And if somebody has to figure out a way to drive resilience in an organization, it's also our space to be that voice to say, you have to be calm. And the topic of our talk today is clarity in chaos. I think somewhere HR has to play that role to say, you will only get clarity if you can calm your nerves down. And to be that voice of patience is extremely important at this time, because you can overreact. And sometimes we might not relate to what the other person is going through. And it used to be easy that you could just meet the person over coffee and understand their pains and stuff. Now you can't. So how do you patiently go through your own emotions and deal with those of others? Because there is far more space and far more compassion needed around us than we have ever seen in the past.
Wonderful. You have actually touched upon a word that I was also trying to bring up. We heard earlier today, a panelist, Kavita Kurup, I think she was, who said that designing for efficiency has to change to designing for resilience. And then our previous special talk, we heard that resilience is good, but is it good enough after that adverse situation has been tackled? You have to go beyond resilience to resonance. So what is your take on this? How to bring this kind of forward-looking change in the entire organization?
So in fact,
Good,
you know,
sorry, I was hoping that you will step in here.
yeah. So you know, actually, what has actually been happening is, Anand, organizations like us, while you know we are changing, and you know there are a lot of things that we are doing as Korn Ferry together. And when they were talking, you know, Shalu was talking about mentoring. I'd just like to share that before I get into the. Today, Korn Ferry globally works on a mentor-mentee program, and there are mentors and mentees from businesses, from HR, and it is no longer an HR goal to keep, you know, you help people in terms of defining their path, in terms of what their career and future is going to really look like. So, you know, there are people, experienced people in the organization who can define that for the rest of the group. And then obviously there are mentees who have reached out with certain skill sets. So there's a whole very well-defined structured program, which is completely voluntary, and it has given us some roaring success in the organization in the last 2 years, which has done a fabulous job of providing the much needed communication, security, and the forward-looking organization and future careers that you know people are really looking at in the organizations today. Now, when you're talking about you know a future organization or a future of work, or you know the resilience piece, etc., which is kind of coming in, I think what is going to be very important is the ability to be able to use data and technology in the best possible manner in every function. You know, Shalu, you were speaking about SAS and SAP and other kind of programs which are there. But what is going to happen tomorrow is that every decision that is going to happen in organizations is going to be proof-led, where there is proof that this has happened, and then future modeling kind of starts happening on it. So this is already here. Today, organizations are using predictive analytic tools to retain people, to understand what their current patterns are and how they can be retained. Today, HR is using enough and more tools in organizations to run training. Today, I think all training programs, everything is e-learning. Now it's a question of how do you give Netflix content kind of feel and look when people are doing training, so that they are engaged and motivated, and it's very interactive for them, so that they don't feel there is a human being missing over there to be able to do that. So I think there is, I would say, enough and more stuff that's happening. What we think as an organization, and we've spoken about that, is we are talking about enterprise leadership coming up in the future. Now, what is actually an enterprise leader? Now, they are people who basically see beyond current obstacles and are able to create, new value system, which means the organization is constantly learning and evolving. So if you really look at it, we are like a hamster on that wheel, which is running today. So, you know, we have to balance ourselves and at the same time ensure that, you know, we are adapting very, very quickly there. So much is happening. I think we've spoken about, I don't think it's a time to be scared like what Pooja said or what Shalu is really talking about. I think there was a time when nobody thought everybody will be using a laptop or using a mobile phone. Today, we are literally tied to them and we are working. And somebody tell us, take one thing away, and trust me, everybody will have anxiety attacks because they will not know what to do the whole day long. So similarly, I think this change is also where organizations will have to adapt. They will have to look at, you know, multiple areas and constantly reinvent in terms of meeting the external factors and dynamics which are going to come into play.
Many thanks. I realize we are coming up to the hour, but surely I would like to put one final rapid fire question to all three of you. And by the way, I understand Sanjay had some major challenge, so he could not join back, some power outage issue or some such thing. So our loss, but anyways, so the rapid fire, and I would request you to answer in just 10 seconds or 15 seconds at the most.
Anand, are you going to give us a hamper or not, like coffee with Karan in the rapid fire?
I was
Yeah.
just going 10 seconds
All-
for
all-
3 of us is
all
very
that will
difficult,
be there.
Anand.
And you
All
have
that
3
will be
women you're
there.
dealing with and saying,
Yeah, absolutely. He doesn't know what he's getting into.
Passionate women wanting to talk about HR and leadership skills and the world of tomorrow in 10 seconds. Very tough.
But hear me out. First, let me make one preface that we all know that one of the most important element of the entire learning process is to unlearn. And my question is very simple. What is the biggest item that you needed to unlearn in the new normal? Anyone can go first, or I will
I'll
have
go
to
first. I think the biggest one that I had to accept was that it is possible to work from home. That was the biggest one. I mean, that was the biggest learning.
you've been very honest, Pooja.
I have.
You've been overly honest. Absolutely. And Anand, for us consultants who spend 25 days on a flight, the biggest thing to unlearn was you don't need to spend so much of money
Exactly.
on flights. Organizations and clients are absolutely okay doing digital conversations.
Absolutely.
The biggest thing I had to unlearn was this, that I can't continue to work constantly just because nobody's asking me to pack my bag and go home. So I realized that because nobody was doing that, and I was sitting in the, the only scenery that changed was move from one room to the other room. And for the earlier part of the pandemic, I struggled to find my boundaries to shut down. And it was only with my own health scare that I started realizing that, listen, you can't work endlessly just because nobody comes and say, and I don't drive. So you can imagine I have to depend on Uber. So I used to be, when at office, I had to maintain my hours to say, okay, I need to hit the road at decent hours and get out.
Anyway,
I had to learn that, boss, you can't just keep working like crazy just because you're at home.
now I have to request you that 10 seconds are more than up, but it was just a very enjoyable answer. Thank you very much, all the three of you, for being so frank. But now I'm being ready. So I'm going for another second rapid fire. And this time you can take 30 seconds each, because that is the nature of my question. What is the quick and brief leadership mantra that you have to share for your business leaders for navigating through the current times?
Okay, maybe I'll go again the first.
Thanks.
I think again, pretty. I mean, I'm a more simplistic person, and my mantra is that lead by example, communicate, be quick to unlearn, and be quick to respond to the changing times. So that's my mantra.
Like
Okay.
2 seconds.
I give my 20 seconds to my fellow panelists.
Maybe we'll give it all to Konika. So
Oh, wow.
I'll say one statement, and I think this is a message that I tell myself every day, and I think this is a key message for leaders of today. Hope for the best, be prepared for the worst.
Yeah.
And if you can be courageous to accept that you don't know all the answers and ask for help, there will always be people who will step in, step up, and support you. So that's my message for the
Excellent.
leaders.
Absolutely. Very simple, Anand. You have to be radically human as a leader today. We spoke earlier about people not being able to understand whether people are working or not. I think we've come out with the term trust or bust. So I think it's going to be extremely important in this changed environment to be absolutely and more human than we've ever been in terms of empathy, being able to understand, and most importantly, somewhere we have to trust our people that they are doing the right thing. It's not necessary every time we need a tool to decide whether somebody is productive or not. And I think we have enough and more examples. I'm sure all of us have gone through multiple exercises, and we've seen productivities actually become better, not worse in these times.
Wonderful. Thank you so very much, all the ladies. And with that, we come to a close of this particular session, which was our last panel session of this e-summit. It has been absolutely rewarding and enjoyable experience. Sincere thanks on behalf of Shared Services Forum. And of course, a coffee is due. and Pallavi will take care of the logistics in the near future. Thank
And
you
the
very much.
hamper. And the hamper. Don't forget the
Yeah, yeah, hamper is due. All three need it, Anand.
Yeah.
एक से नहीं
They gave
चलेगा.
such good
Okay.
answers. And I was just going to say, Konika and Pooja, that the Shared Services Forum kept the best for the last. So we were the best panelists. I don't know about other panels, but I had a great time talking. And Anand, thank you for a great facilitation. And it was amazing meeting you in a virtual world. But it's always good to meet new people.
Since my company is also one of the corporate sponsors of the event, the hamper will carry some of my products, and you may actually not like it. Okay, so we will.
I resonate, Shalu's sentiments.
Anyways,
Thank you.
So we will take care. No worries, jokes apart. But it has been fantastic interaction. I mean, I didn't realize that the time was up. Okay, it was going so well, and we were so engrossed in this conversation. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone. Be safe. Take
Bye.
care. Bye.
Bye bye.